So, folks, we have to talk about Amy Acton, who is currently running for governor, I believe, of Ohio. And, well, let's give you an introduction to Amy, shall we? Wow, that looks like someone who's really into, supporting LGBTQ rights. That sounds great. What a wonderful candidate for governor. I know Ohio has a long history of making sure that LGBTQ people are miserable, but like, hey, it's great that the Democratic Party can like coalesce behind a Democrat who's willing to fight for LGBTQ Ohioans' rights. That's really cool. Anyway, fast forward to not Pride Month, and huh, Amy Acton adds LGBTQ plus equality language to campaign platform following anti-transgender controversy. So basically, she was willing to put up a video during Pride to use LGBTQ people as like props for her campaign. But then when it actually stopped being Pride, she what exactly happened with this anti-transgender controversy? Well, let's take a look here. What actually happened? She did an interview with the Toledo Blade on the last day of Pride, June 30th, actually. And wouldn't you know it, she said some shit. Supreme Court upholds state transgender sports bans. Let's take a look here. Let's find the quote from Amy Acton. Here we go. Ohio Senate President Rob McCauley, Mr. Ramaswamy's running mate, said every Democrat in the legislature voted against House Bill 68. Does Amy Acton agree with the liberal extremists in her own party? Mr. McCauley said. If the press was doing its job, it would ask her. Dr. Acton said she agrees with the law prohibiting transgender women in sports from participating in women's and girls' sports. Quote, I do not support boys playing in girls' sports. This is already settled law in Ohio, and as governor, I will enforce and uphold the law. As a doctor, public servant, and mom, I will always stand up for fairness and protect kids' health and safety. While my opponent tries to divide us, I'm laser focused on issues that matter most to Ohioans: lowering costs, cracking down on corruption, and cutting taxes for working families. But not, keeping trans kids of working families alive, I guess. This is as far as I can tell, the leading Democrat for governor in Ohio. And that's the anti-trans controversy that is being talked about. So I want to really highlight the sequence of events here. She was willing during Pride Month to celebrate and use queer people as props in her videos, but the second she was called upon to actually show a backbone and stand up for the T part of LGBTQ plus people, she said, nah, Lamau, fuck that, and threw trans people under the bus and called trans girls boys. Like, I don't know. I don't think you get to pretend to be an LGBTQ ally while misgendering trans people. I don't think you get to do that, actually. And that's I just seems to me like that should to any sane Democrat in 2026 be a non-starter. And yet, here we are. Here we are. This, of course, has been received very poorly by LGBTQ people in Ohio. Specifically, the Ohio Democratic Pride Caucus and the Ohio Democrats Progressive Caucus. The Progressive Caucus actually put out a statement condemning Amy Acton before being forced by the Ohio State Party to retract that statement because they didn't go through the proper channels as an internal caucus to the Democratic Party, effectively censoring any progressive criticism of Amy Acton. It is really, really gross. This is all very Ohio. It is very Ohio. It's not unexpected for Ohio, but it is deeply disgusting nonetheless. And in order to cover her ass, she added the following language to her website, which I want to stress was not there originally. All Ohioans deserve to be treated fairly and equally under the law. As governor, I am committed to standing up against discrimination and ensuring that every Ohioan, including members of the LGBT community, receives equal protection under the law. Except trans people. Fuck them, right? Except trans people. The thing that gets me, right, is that I'm a trans woman on the internet. I get misgendered every time I go live. Every time I am live and making content and talking with you guys, there's a flood of dipshits and cruel conservative ghouls who try to make me feel bad and try to misgender me. And I don't really care about that. It obviously takes some kind of toll on me, but for the most part, I'm a tough cookie. The most vulnerable people in the world are trans kids. They're arguably one of the most vulnerable groups in the entire world. And you took the opportunity as someone running for political office, the highest political office on the state level. And you took the opportunity to attack the most powerless people in your state. And you did it in a way that specifically furthers the discrimination against them. It's infuriating. And then you try to cloak it with this progressive sounding language, and it's just bullshit. And we know it's bullshit because at the slightest available opportunity, you attacked fucking children. You attacked kids. It's grotesque.
Jack, you're missing it. Ohio law already discriminates against trans
We're getting
people.
that.
So when she says equal protection under the law,
she's
not suggesting she'll revoke the laws. It's status quo.
No, I get that. We're getting to that. The fact is, she's upholding the laws that Republicans passed to discriminate against trans people, against LGBTQ people in Ohio. When she's talking about saying, oh, yeah, I will make sure everyone has equal protection under the law, that doesn't exist right now for LGBTQ people in Ohio. It doesn't exist. She is lying. And she is, frankly, again, turning LGBTQ people into props. It is gross. There is a part of me that gets so mad seeing these opportunistic, parasitic politicians taking advantage of a moment in front of a camera to try and maximize their profile with the worst people on earth by attacking kids, by trying to foment the power of the government against children. She abuses her status as a doctor. She abuses her status as a Democratic candidate for governor. She abuses her status as somebody with a platform. And that is fucking unacceptable. It is unacceptable to me. How do you claim to be someone who has taken an oath to do no harm? And she's, by the way, a pediatrician who has taken an oath to do no harm. And then she does this shit. Misgenders kids, would deny them medical treatment, would deny them equal participation in society. It's evil. It is evil. And What is unacceptable to me is that it looks at what Republicans have tried to make the status quo and says, this is what Democrats should accept as the status quo. It makes me furious. Makes me so mad. I will push for anti-discrimination laws so Ohioans aren't unjustly fired from their job or denied housing, other public accommodations, or equal pay because of their race, gender, sexual orientation, or religion. Acton's official website reads, "As governor, I will be focused on bringing our communities together, not on sowing hatred and division. Every Ohioan deserves to live freely and be treated with dignity. Unless they're a kid who's trans, I guess." It is disgusting. Like, this is where we're at. And we've seen the backlash here play out in a couple of interesting ways.
Insert the MLK White moderate quote from his Birmingham jail letter. Martin Luther King's observations are evergreen as always. These fucking moderates of the white non-oppressed majorities.
And, like, I just have to say, this segment is entirely how this cannot be acceptable. This approach from Democrats cannot be acceptable. I say that because it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost for actual kids' lives. When this woman looked at the internal calculus of her political campaign, she said, It is acceptable for me to spread and facilitate and empower messaging that harms trans kids. And, like, I don't find that to be an acceptable cost. Like, I'm sorry. If you think that that's what it takes to win, I want somebody who's willing to do better than that. Because it comes at a real cost. It comes at the cost of children's lives. This is an article, one of the most moving articles of this ilk that I have read in quite some time. I'm going to link it in the chat here for all of you to read. Idaho pushed anti-trans laws for years, then a teen died. This is an article about a trans girl named May Pollard. Right?
It's also worth noting that Ohio already has a bathroom law, a ban on gender-affirming care, under litigation, and gender markers on licenses, litigation too.
Idaho also has the same laws. These kinds of laws that Amy Acton is acknowledging as a new status quo, that she finds unproblematic, that she finds acceptable, they kill girls like May Pollard. They kill children. Like, this is heartbreaking. After May Pollard died on a late January morning, a detective asked her parents a question. Had anyone wanted to hurt her? A lot of America, her mother answered. Less than an hour earlier, Elise Thorpe had found her daughter's body inside their home, called 911, and sobbed as she tried to revive her. May, an avid poet and gamer, had been struggling and increasingly withdrawn. Now at 16, she was gone, and the detective from the Boise Police Department wanted to know what Elise meant. May's father answered instead. There's a huge amount of animosity every single day thrown at trans kids, Joseph Pollard replied, voice rising. The whole fucking country, the whole fucking administration, every single fucking day. His raw fury came from the years of pain he and Elise watched May endure since she came out as a transgender girl. She avoided eating or drinking at school for fear that she would need to go to the bathroom, and she panicked when she had to use one for the boys. She talked of hurting herself if she couldn't start taking estrogen. She hated how state laws highlighted the only way she was different when she longed to fit in. It was more than any kid should have to go through. You worry about that hatred being internalized, and that's what happened to my kid, Elise told NBC News. It got inside. This is a picture of May's mother holding her stuffed sloth. I want you to remember that stuffed sloth. Because this is the fucking cost. Man, this is the cost. This is the cost of every single time Democrats capitulate on trans issues. It is the cost every single time one of those fuckers goes on a panel show on the Sunday circuit and says, well, I don't want my daughter playing with boys. This is the cost of every single time Christopher Rufo gets a fluff piece in the New York Times. This is the cost of every single time a journalist tries to both sides this issue and trans people in general. This is the cost. It's dead kids. It's dead trans people. Only a monster's heart wouldn't break. In Idaho alone, within the last few years of May's life, state legislators proposed more than 4 dozen bills aimed at LGBTQ rights, and Governor Brad Little signed 15 into law, according to the ACLU. Many targeted youth, banning trans minors from getting treatments like puberty blockers and hormone therapy, and prohibiting classroom instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity in public K-12 schools. State lawmakers who supported the bills have said their intent is to protect children. Healthcare for trans kids hasn't been studied enough, they said, and during school, students shouldn't be exposed to information about sexual orientation and gender in ways their parents find inappropriate. We need to stop sterilizing and mutilating children under the age of 18, State Representative Bruce Skaug, a Republican who sponsored the state's transition care ban for minors, said when the measure passed the House in 2022. May had been aware of what was happening. She wrote poetry that she shared with friends about not fitting in and self-harm. One of her favorite songs by the noise pop band Stomach Book was about trans identity and oppression. She wanted to be a teenage girl, not an activist, playing video games with her friends and exchanging silly messages about cats and music. But she also felt that what she and other trans kids experienced was unfair. Last summer, she joined a lawsuit under the pseudonym Jane Doe to challenge a state law that banned trans students in K-12 schools from using bathrooms or locker rooms aligning with their gender identities. The law had forced her to use gender-neutral bathrooms at school, effectively outing her. Now, many of you may have remembered me talking about this lawsuit last year, because this was one of the things that might have put a stop to what was happening in Idaho. Might have put a stop and offered a path forward to stopping stuff like this in Ohio. She was one of the girls fighting this fight. At 16 years old, she was going to fight this all the way to the Supreme Court. I don't want people to know I am transgender without my consent, even students who might be friendly, May said in a case filing last fall. I find being forced to use a separate bathroom ostracizing, and I feel like I'm being treated like this other kind of thing. Throughout the last few years, advocates and doctors have camped outside the state representative's office and stayed late at Capitol buildings, including in Idaho, to oppose anti-trans bills, sharing stories of trans friends and loved ones who attempted or died by suicide. Research has shown, they told lawmakers, that trans youth are at increased risk of self-harm, especially when they don't have access to treatment like hormone therapy. Being transgender, they stress, does not make a person inherently more prone to suicide, but the climate they face can pose a threat to mental health. The parents go and testify, we say, children are going to die, Elise said. I want to remind you all, Elise's daughter just killed herself. And she's talking with NBC News. I cannot imagine losing a child and being able to talk about this so candidly. Parents go and testify, and we say children are going to die. We tell the legislators that, and they dismiss it. I guess they think it's hyperbole, or they think it's hysteria, or they think it's an acceptable outcome, probably some mix of those things. So I don't understand why there is an unwillingness to connect these laws to these outcomes. It was right there from the start. She had watched the toll they took on her daughter. Man, this one gets me. May was energetic and curious when she was little. She loved trips to the zoo. She excelled in her studies. She started to change in other ways. She grew her hair long, chose glasses from a women's display at the iSmart Express near their home. She asked her mom for bows to wear in her hair. Come out, Elise remembers thinking. I'm ready to help you, but you have to tell me. May came out to her dad during her 8th grade year. She texted him one day out of the blue, explaining she identified as a girl and hoped he would support her. He texted back immediately, I support you 100%, he remembers telling her. I want you to be who you are, and it's not a problem with me. Over the course of several months, May slowly came out to her mom over a series of evening conversations in her bedroom. One night, she reclined against a pillow on her twin bed, Pokemon stuffies decorating the surrounding shelves, and told her mom that she had a decision to make. Elias, sitting cross-legged on the floor, listened. May talked about her gender, but also what sounded like contemplations of self-harm. What she knew was that her body was unlivable, Elise said, and she wasn't sure what we could do about that. Her parents supported her by switching her schools, starting therapy, changing her name, developing what her mom described as her signature goth cottagecore style. One of her favorite looks included a long-sleeved pink button-up shirt with a lace collar and pockets, paired with a skirt and black high-top Converse. And, like, I gotta tell you guys, if you know a lot of trans people, I guarantee you know somebody like May. I guarantee it. May Pollard could have been any one of us. And when I hear Democrats like Amy Acton or Seth Moulton or any other Democrat capitulating on this issue, what I see is someone saying they're okay with this outcome. And one of the reasons I want to be very outspoken about this is because I hope Amy Acton changes course. Because where we're at right now, we cannot allow this cancer to grow in the Democratic Party. It cannot be acceptable to say you are willing to let children die because you thought being bigoted would get you some votes. We cannot allow for that mentality to be validated in any conceivable way. As she got older, May spent more time in her room. Elise enjoyed hearing her play video games behind her closed door, laughing and good-naturedly swearing. That's a direct quote. She made a tradition of attending PAX West, an annual gaming conference in Seattle, with her dad. May would shed her quiet, reserved manner, teaming up with strangers for tournaments. Last year, she went in cosplay as a character from one of her favorite games, posing for her selfies when, at home, she wouldn't allow her family to take photos of her. She would always come home from that conference with so much confidence, Joseph said. The cosplay photo breaks me, man. She's gone to conventions cosplaying a Deltarune character. And I see politicians, and I know that I'm talking a lot about Amy Acton here and Democrats capitulating here, but I want to be clear. The blood is on the hands of every single person who voted for this and said that they were okay with this. Every single Republican that voted for these laws, they have her blood on their hands. I do not know how these people consider themselves to have souls, consider themselves to be subject to some kind of higher power, when they are out here facilitating the suicides of trans kids. This is the direct effect of their actions to discriminate against kids like May. May tried to settle into herself, but found living in Idaho made it harder. In 9th grade, May confided in her dad that she was struggling with suicidal thoughts and made a plan to harm herself. She said she needed to medically transition, but she knew she couldn't under the state law until she turned 18. She asked her dad if he could use her Christmas money to buy hormones online. Guys, do you have any idea how much it breaks my heart to imagine a child begging their parents if they can use their Christmas money to get the medical treatment they need? Her parents recognized her increasing need for treatment. Elise took May to her pediatrician, who wrote her a referral to receive care in Oregon. After spending several months on a wait list, May and Elise flew to Portland in the fall of May's sophomore year when she was 15 so she could start estrogen. She had to visit the doctor every 6 months. Once Trump took office and began a federal crackdown on a gender-affirming treatment for young people, Elise drove more than 13 hours round trip for the visits because she worried about creating a federal record of flying for transition care. And this is another part of this story that rips me apart inside, which is that May had parents who clearly loved her and did everything in their power to keep her here. They were flying to other states to get her the care they need. They were driving 13 hours round trip to get her the care that she needed. But when you're a parent and you have to fight the entire goddamn world, the entire federal government, the entire state government, it's too much. And May got crushed. The treatment brightened May. Her mom said it seemed like for the first time in a long time, May wanted to live. But anytime there was even a small delay in filling her prescription, she would become more anxious and withdrawn. Elise looked to find her additional outlets, and early last year, they joined a monthly support group for trans kids and parents through the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. After hearing during the meetings that May was struggling, Emmy Irwin, another trans girl, reached out and they quickly became best friends. Their first hangout lasted almost all day, Emmy said, starting with hours of gabbing at a coffee shop and ending at her house to watch Castle in the Sky, classic Studio Ghibli film. From then on, they messaged nearly every day. They liked taking trips to the arcade, where Amy, 18, said she would drag May to play Japanese rhythm games, only for May to beat her every time. They bonded over a shared desire to be authentic. Neither of us, Emmy said, had to explain ourselves to each other. It is rough right now to be trans in America. You know, it's rough on me, and I'm a fully grown adult. I'm a fully grown adult, and I feel terror when I go outside, even in a state that is supportive of trans people. You know, I feel worried that I'm going to run into, you know, someone who is going to try to make my transness their problem. It is much, much harder for a trans child where their entire world is discrimination and fear. And it's worse when those kids know that the state is armed up against them. The government, the laws are aligned against them. Trans kids have it so fucking rough, man. Trans kids have it so rough. The healthcare system isn't doing any good for these people. No, it's not the healthcare system failing trans people. It's society failing trans people. If you ever stop and wonder, hey, why do trans people kill themselves so often? It's because society hates trans people and actively persecutes trans people. It's because people come into my chat all the time and talk about how I'm basically subhuman. You know? And people do that in person to trans people and trans kids all the time. And when you get called subhuman day in and day out, it takes a toll. Especially takes a toll on kids. That isn't a failure of our healthcare system. It's a failure of our society. And it has been weaponized by the worst people in our society for political gain. And I find that to be absolutely disgusting. When the bathroom law took effect in July of 2023, it faced an immediate challenge. Lambda Legal, the LGBTQ legal advocacy organization, sued on behalf of a handful of students, claiming the measure was unconstitutional and asking a judge to block it. A federal district court declined to do so, but the students appealed, and a Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals panel blocked the law that fall while judges considered the case. The reprieve didn't last. A second panel of Ninth Circuit judges reversed the decision in spring of 2025, siding with the state's argument that it was justified in treating trans students differently in the interest of protecting student privacy in bathrooms and locker rooms. Which I do want to say, what a shit argument. You already, like if you're in a locker room or a bathroom, you ostensibly already have privacy. If you are in a bathroom stall, you have privacy. This is just baseline discrimination. The judges determined that locker rooms where showers may not have curtains or stalls pose the biggest privacy concern. The state had an interest, they wrote, in protecting students from being exposed to the naked bodies of other students of the opposite sex, or from having to expose their own bodies. And I just want to point out, there's a really easy solution here. Put goddamn doors on the stalls. The thing that kills me about a lot of these stories and a lot of these circumstances that get put forward is like, oh, no, we couldn't. Look, obviously, all of the girl students should be able to see each other naked if they have vaginas. And it's just like, wait, what? That's weird too. All of the boys should be able to see each other as long as they have dicks. Wait, that's weird. That's a weird standard to have. The way better solution here is to give every student privacy. Give every student like a stall that has a door. But heaven forbid a school district have to spend like $1,000 putting doors on stalls. Heaven forbid that schools have to spend money, that the state have to spend like, I don't know, $100,000 in order to put the doors on changing rooms or curtains on showers. Heaven forbid. No. If we do that, we won't be able to give a tax cut to Richard Richardson, the richest man in the state. And this is the thing that kills me. Like, they talk about it like it's in the interest of student privacy. If you're talking about a locker room where there aren't places for students to change in private, it's not privacy, is it? They don't give a shit about student privacy. Also, I can tell you this, trans students don't want to get changed. They don't want to get naked in front of other students. This goes, by the way, both before and after transition, right? There's literally nothing on earth that is more uncomfortable. But rather than spend money on doors in Idaho or Ohio, this is the argument they're going with. Last July, before her junior year, she joined the case after learning about it through her support group. She saw an opportunity to help while remaining anonymous. At the time, besides the boys' room, May was allowed to use 2 bathrooms at Boise High School, one in the nurse's office and another across campus in a separate building. May found the option stigmatizing. Because, of course, if you're one of the only, maybe the only trans girl at this high school, people are going to start noticing that the only place you go to the bathroom is the nurse's office, or you have to leave the entire building to go to the opposite side of campus in order to use that bathroom. We're literally at a point where, like, if you're a trans girl or trans boy, like you're segregated from like the general population at your school. And I want to remind you all, that is especially lonely if you are like the only trans kid in your school, which is often the case, because there aren't that many of us. And like, that takes a toll. Kids notice, they talk, they make fun of you. I have nightmares about this almost every night. There's a reason trans people have higher rates of kidney disease and urinary tract infections. It's because we dehydrate ourselves rather than go to the bathroom. If we know we're going out into the world, a lot of trans people dehydrate themselves so they don't need to go and use an unknown, potentially unsafe bathroom. It has a physical toll on our bodies, a measurable one, as well as a mental toll. May found the option stigmatizing. She was tired of feeling starved and parched by the time her afternoon classes rolled around. If she had the slightest stomach upset, she would miss school altogether. Elise said she warned May's teachers about what was happening during parent-teacher conferences, but the instructors didn't know what to do. The Boise School District declined to discuss May's case with NBC News, citing student privacy laws, but said in a statement that it prioritizes creating safe, welcoming learning environments where every student has the opportunity to learn and grow and succeed. Which is obviously bullshit because they didn't do that for her. May told the court that one of the gender-neutral bathrooms at the school became known as the trans bathroom. She felt like she was under a microscope. While I am transgender, I don't view it as the defining feature of who I am as a person, May wrote in an affidavit for the case. I just want to fit in. It is upsetting to think that I may have to go through the rest of high school without access to something as basic as the ability to use the same restroom as everyone else. This is truly disgusting. Truly disgusting. May wanted gender-affirming surgery, but the closest surgeons her doctors referred her to were in Portland or Denver. During her recovery, she and her mom would need to live in one of the cities for 3 months. To save for the expense, Elise picked up a second job working evenings as a grocery store cashier. May dreamed of moving to Oregon and leaving Idaho for good. She'd run away once before, but only made it a few miles from home before her dad found her. She turned to poetry, emptying pain through her keyboard. Across several poems, she wrote of fatigue, feeling out of place, and death. Tired, mired, still, I soak into the carpet. Little, brittle chill. Remind me that I don't fit. She shared some of her work online in a chat room. Emmy tried to connect deeper, checking on May every day. Elise said she went back and forth on the possibility of inpatient care, and May's messages grew more concerning. Everyone always leaves me before summer arrives, usually before spring even, May wrote to Emmy in early January. I'm going to stay by your side as long as you want me to, May. Amy responded, I promise. A week later, May shared another poem in the chat room. Asbestos, radiation, there was no violation. Typical trauma missing, pained lives still got me wishing. Maybe it's problematic. Think I've more ghosts in my attic. Guess this is actually bliss, 'cause there's few cuts on my wrists. Hollowing, rotting within, until my spirits cave in, my heartbeat slows to a stop, and in the static I drop. May and Emmy last spoke the evening of January 26th. How are you? Emmy messaged. Okay, May replied. Are you sure? Emmy asked. Yeah, May said. Sorry, kinda distracted. May asked about Emmy, who said she was good but sleepy. I'll leave you to it, though, Emmy told her. That night, Elise arrived home late after working both of her jobs and briefly saw May when she came out of her room to take a shower. She said May smiled and told her she had a good day. They both went to bed. The next morning, on January 27th, Elise woke up early and made May breakfast, fried eggs and veggie bacon like she always did. She took it upstairs to May's room, only to find it empty. She screamed, saw that May had left a note on her desk, and hoped that she had just run away again. She called 911 to report May missing while her partner dialed May's dad. Joseph called and called May, begging her to respond. I love you so much, he remembers texting her. Please just let us know you're safe. Elise tore through the house looking for May before she found her lifeless in a downstairs bedroom. All of this resulted in May's case as Jane Doe being dropped because the other trans kid in the state had graduated, and this case can only be brought by kids who are within the high school system. If you age out, the case cannot be pursued. So with May's death, there is no longer a case being waged on behalf of trans kids in Idaho. And I'm going to read you guys the press release from the Attorney General of Idaho, Raul Labrador. This is from May 21st. Attorney General Raul Labrador announced today that the legal challenge to Idaho's school privacy law has come to an end after the plaintiffs agreed to voluntarily dismiss both their district court case and their Ninth Circuit appeal. The case, Sexuality and Gender Alliance versus Crutchfield, targeted Idaho's law protecting sex-specific spaces in K-12 public schools, including locker rooms, showers, restrooms, and overnight accommodations. In March of 2023, the Idaho legislature passed Senate Bill 1100, requiring students in Idaho public schools to use bathrooms, locker rooms, showers, and overnight facilities corresponding to their biological sex. The law also requires schools to provide single occupancy accommodations for any student who prefers not to use a multi-occupancy facility. Shortly after passage, a student and the Sexuality and Gender Alliance filed suit, claiming the law violated the Equal Protection Clause, Title IX, and the right to privacy. In October of 2023, U.S. District Judge David Nye denied the plaintiff's request for a preliminary injunction, agreeing with Attorney General Labrador's arguments that SB 1100 is substantially related to the government's important interest in protecting the privacy and safety of students. The plaintiffs appealed to the Ninth Circuit, which unanimously affirmed the district court in March 2025, finding that protecting students' bodily privacy is a legitimate government interest and that the law violated neither the Equal Protection Clause nor Title IX. The plaintiffs have now agreed to drop the case entirely. Quote, from the district court to the Ninth Circuit, we defended Idaho's right to protect students' privacy in bathrooms and locker rooms, said Attorney General Labrador. Idaho families can be confident that this law is fully in effect and will remain so. Each side will bear its own costs and fees under the stipulation. Not a single mention in any of that the sole remaining child within the school system had killed herself, and that there were no longer any children able to bring this case before the courts. May took her life, but these are the people who killed her. The lawmakers, the judicial system, it was too much, and they killed her. And in their press release acknowledging their victory, they don't even acknowledge her death. Brace yourselves. May's family and friends have felt her absence in a million little moments. Her empty, untouched room, her spot at the support group, which now lights a blue candle with her name etched onto it before every meeting, the rear seat in Elise's car where May would sit whenever they drove to her brother's college in Oregon. Daily traditions have ended. Every morning, May rode to school with her dad, who kept a tin of mints in his car. As soon as she got in, he'd take a mint and May would take one. The tin has sat untouched in Joseph's car with 2 mints left since January. One for him and one for May. When we talk about there being a cost, when we talk about Democrats who call trans girls boys and trans boys girls, this is the cost. When we talk about bathroom bills, when we talk about, trans sports, when we talk about all this shit, it becomes so easy to abstract it, but this is the fucking cost. And when you see a Democrat breaking ranks to try and be edgy, to try and throw trans kids' lives away, these are the lives they throw away. Amy Acton, by coming out there and saying, "Oh, well, we'll enforce the status quo laws in Ohio as they are," effectively sets the stage, as a Democrat, for more kids like May to die. Just in another state, too. Whenever Emmy and May became bored and needed to fill the silence, they'd meow Christmas songs to each other, no matter the season. Over the last few months, Emmy had found herself meowing Jingle Bells when she's alone. She had a lot to give this world, Joseph said. Whether she was trans or not, this world, not just my world, this world would have been a better place with her in it. And I think fundamentally, this is something that a lot of Republicans in particular don't believe in. A lot of Republicans do not believe that the world would be better with trans people in it. They actually believe that trans people make the world worse. And it's why so many of them are gladly complicit with policies that kill us. The policies that led to May's death. So when you see Gavin Newsom going on a podcast talking about how I don't want my kids playing sports with, I don't want my girls playing sports with boys, slapping ass with Charlie Kirk on his podcast, or when you see Amy Acton throwing trans girls under the bus, it's pretty grotesque, It's pretty grotesque. And because, I do the Transatlantic Call-In show. I talk about, the arguments around, trans kids and trans people in sports quite a bit. And I know that, frankly, Republicans just don't care. You can cite all of the studies you want. You can give them the most comprehensive meta-analysis of sports, ability among trans people. They don't give a shit. They do not give a shit. You can present them all of the evidence in the world that shows that there's no meaningful difference between trans girls and cis girls, or trans men and cis men when it comes to athletic ability. Because transition and gender affirming care level that playing field quite effectively. But they don't give a shit. And it's fundamentally because they don't view trans people as people. And they view the world as better without us in it. And I think that's pretty gross. I think it is a gross mentality to have about an entire group of people. On March 31st, which is Transgender Day of Visibility, the governor signed a law making it a crime for trans people to use restrooms in line with their gender identities in government-owned buildings and private businesses across Idaho. The next day, advocates held a sit-in inside the governor's office to protest. "I want to support the protesters and remind everyone, including the governor," Elise said, "that the stakes are real." She stood outside his office, holding a small stuffed sloth and a photo of May. Because that's the cost. That is the cost. And it devastates me. It absolutely devastates me. I want to direct your attention to this piece by the Substack Balls and Strikes by Jay Willis. "Anti-trans activists know what the Supreme Court will let them do next. Brett Kavanaugh says that sports are just different. The anti-trans activists he's emboldening do not see things that way." In the paragraph that follows, I'm going to briefly subject you to something that, if I were not writing a newsletter, I would not ask my worst enemy to read. Insights from the Mind of Riley Gaines, whose ability to parlay a fifth-place finish at a college swim meet into a career as an anti-trans podcaster is a tribute to what late-stage capitalism can accomplish. I think we're going to continue to see movement and allow the people's voice to be heard, especially in some of those purple states, Gaines told Politico last month, after the Supreme Court in West Virginia v. BPJ upheld state lawmakers' power to bar trans girls from playing women's sports. Each major decision gives your ordinary person more cover to say something that was the standard, like the default position to take really not that long ago. And that's really the case here, right? What people fail to understand when they concede on trans sports, because I am going to throw this out there. Fundamentally, I think that the trans sports the salience of this issue is largely due to the fact that a lot of cis people intuitively feel that the anti-trans argument is correct and haven't bothered to look into it. And I say that, and I'm just gonna, I'm gonna throw a Hail Mary here. Maybe somebody will give a shit. Maybe. This is from the British Journal of Sports Medicine. This is a systematic review. Body composition and physical fitness in transgender versus cisgender individuals, a systematic review with meta-analysis. They look at over 50 studies, composed of hundreds and thousands of trans people. And what they find is that there is no meaningful difference in athletic ability between trans people and cis people. There just isn't one. When we talk about there being a difference that persists beyond transition, beyond HRT, that difference is that trans women tend to be taller. But there are also other groups of women that tend to be taller. You can have, people from China tend to be shorter than people from America. And yet we still allow the Chinese women's team to participate in volleyball against the American women's team. That is a difference that we have largely, by and large, accepted within sports. But for whatever reason, this difference to a lot of conservatives in particular seems to be very, very salient. When we're talking about this, the reason that I'm bringing this up is because the intuitive gut reaction that some people have, even people on the left or Democrats have, that, oh, well, obviously the anti-trans position is correct on sports, but nothing else. The gut thing there that's happening, that's what's being used as the wedge issue to get a foot in the door so that Republicans can systematically strip trans people of their rights. And we know that that is the case because we see it playing out on the state level. That is what is happening to these trans kids. That is why these trans kids are killing themselves. It's because they are seeing their state building walls around them, locking them in, closing the door on their ability to exist. Rather than suffer, they're saying, I don't want to go through that. I want to be who I want to be. Jackson Cassidy, the reason it's different when you're talking about athletic ability is because what causes the differences during puberty? It's hormones. Your ability for your body to continue functioning relies on constant hormone production. When you take HRT, it gives you the opposite set of hormones that your body then operates with, which then causes profound body changes. That includes changes to muscle mass, bone density, etc., which then translates to basically no difference in athletic ability between trans people and cis people. You can look at this study. I'll link it in chat if you'd like. There was a correction issued to the study, but it was basically removing one of the studies that wasn't great and adding more studies that were of higher quality. So it actually refined the results of the study and strengthened their findings. This is also largely the largest sample size we are likely to get, given that the nature of like all 50 studies taken as in their totality.
They even apply it to chess.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, because apparently being able to turn kings into queens is OP.
Indeed, it's a very advanced move. when the king piece becomes a queen and goes beyond plus ultra. It's a super sneaker move. It's very powerful. But this is why I find the capitulation from spineless Democrats problematic. If we can't expect you to fight for trans kids, how can we expect you to fight for adults? Not just trans adults, any adults. If you won't fight for the most vulnerable group of people, how can anyone expect you to follow through or to like actually be there when times get tough? I don't think you can. This is me ending this. I know I have talked a lot of shit about Amy Acton. There is a way to like avoid this disaster, this political implosion that's currently happening. And that's to admit you are wrong and change. It's literally the meme, fix your heart or die. Because increasingly, that's the way the wind is blowing here in America. It is blowing in a progressive direction. It is blowing towards a better future. Because people are angry, and they are filled with righteous indignation. So fix your heart or die.
Every beautiful life snuffed out under this evil shit is burned into my mind. My heart is broken and I'm so tired of seeing our youth die. There is no place to compromise on trans rights, ever.
Absolutely. Because also, it is a litmus test, you know? Like, I can't in good conscience support a candidate who is not going to support my right to exist. I can't do that. And I think most people would recognize, yeah, we can't do that. Yes, well, you know, worth playing the quote. We'll play the quote for us to end this out.
Before you were Denise, when you were Dennis, and I was your boss, when I had you working undercover at the DEA, you were a confused and wild thing sometimes. I had enough dirt on you to fill the Grand Canyon. And I never used a spoonful because you were and are a great agent. And when you became Denise, I told all your colleagues, those clown comics, to fix their hearts or die.
David Lynch put it very, very well. Why is he yelling? He just talks like that. He's a weird little guy. Anyway, if you want to do something about this, join your local political scene. Get involved in your local politics. Join your local Dems and kick any and everyone out who doesn't support the right of trans kids to flourish and live long, full lives. You have the power to do that when you get involved on the local level. You have the ability to do it. Join your local Dems, join your local DSA. If you need help getting involved with either of those organizations, we can help you do it. Join our Discord, reach out to Dragonfly for help joining your local Dems, reach out to GamerG for help joining your local DSA. And folks, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. And last but not least, check out ImogeneOlivia.com, gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes, because a lot of things in this world are really bad. And honestly, my partner started Imogene Olivia because a lot of things in this world are bad. Your underwear should not be something that makes you hate your body. So if you're in the market for gender euphoric lingerie, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. It's non-tucking, sexy, comfortable, etc. Go check it out, ImogeneOlivia.com. Link down in the description. Also, for those of you out there struggling, don't die. You're not allowed. Let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, gaming, plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.